Hey there, YouTube. I have a story for you today. I want to talk about Benji Smith. Now, this is somebody I hadn't heard about before today. I hadn't heard of Prosecraft.io. And I'm going to tell you this story, and it's AI related, but the website essentially started as a non-AI website. This was a passion project by Benji. And in this blog post, and I'll go ahead and link it in the description for you, he goes on to talk about how he created it, his thoughts and his feelings when he went to create it. I mean, this reads as somebody who absolutely loves stories, loves authors, and the process of writing. From creating a spreadsheet of his own to eventually using something that he picked up from, I guess, a quote from Kurt Vonnegut. And he started counting the types of words in books and things like that, and he eventually made a data set of his own. So over time, you end up with a little bit more than a word counter. You end up with a tool that's telling you a lot about these stories and a lot about how they're created and what they have in common, and you're looking for patterns and finding them, and that's exactly what AI does. The examples here on your screen are what his website would show, which is, a word count and the percentage of vividness and adverbs and things like that. The example images here are from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And you can see like the most passive page, the most vivid page. And I guess the thought behind this is if you're an up-and-coming author and you want to try to get into what your genre is already doing, or you want to see, what other authors are doing, this gives you a little bit more of a clear-cut way of seeing that, I suppose. And there's a different side of the coin too for people that just love data and love to see the interesting data sets. If you're just curious to see a word cloud of your favorite book, for example, I guess the website would allow for something like that as well. So the project, the data collection and all that started about 10 years ago. I guess this website started in 2017, and this was shown off to authors. This was something that people were using and people were interested in. It looks like Benji had also created a desktop application he called Shakespeare with an X, and that allowed authors to do very cool things. They could run these same analytics on even projects that they were working on themselves. So in the time before AI became more prevalent and before people's opinions became really sour about it, Benji's website was doing well, it sounds like. But it looks like, and this is an event that took place from what I gathered just a few days ago, authors suddenly banded together against Benji and all suddenly demanded that he shut down the website. And beyond that, I even saw like absolute demands that he delete the data set, like this whole thing never happened. What it looks like to me is a lot of smaller authors basically all banded together to hate rate him and force him into feeling like his website was hurting authorship and hurting their craft. This is extremely reminiscent to me of the AI art arguments. Prosecraft, the website that everyone was demanding being taken down, never generated any income. And there's also the question of the Shakespeare desktop app, but it looks like Benji has got to pay his bills with a job on top of everything else, so I don't feel like that's really popping off either. This situation is sad to me, because this is a guy who created a website because he loves authors, he loves stories, and because data scraping is involved and because propaganda has gone on to tell people that this is like the enemy and this is going to take their jobs, websites like Benji's are no longer allowed to exist, I suppose. I just think it sucks that Benji felt like he had to take his website down. Now again, this isn't a website that I've seen, it's not one that I've personally used. It was just a story that I came across that I kind of resonated with, and I felt like this community at least might understand that, this guy really wasn't trying to hurt anybody. The only point that I do want to clarify still remains a bit unclear to me is where a lot of this data originated from, because a lot of authors are claiming that Benji stole the data originally, as if they were pirated books or something along those lines. And obviously if that's the case, I really can't support that. Now, Benji had mentioned in his blog that his original data came from books on his shelf that he already owns, so it's possible that this could be the same, but it's again also possible the data could have come from elsewhere. To end this video, I'm not really sure what to say other than data scraping is not the enemy, and that's certainly not a breach of copyright or anything along those lines. But one thing that's very clear when it comes to the arts, whether it's AI art, whether it's writing or music or things like that, is people are intensely passionate about those jobs and that monetary source. Obviously, anyone who's trying to get in the way of that is going to get some flack, and I would say rightfully so. Unfortunately, Benji was not one of those people. Now, there are people out there who are planning to use AI to hurt writers, but it's not going to be people like Benji, it would be people like Bob Iger. So I'm right there with you in support of the writers, the writer strike, the WGA, things like that. I think the worst part of all this is, especially if you're one of those people who's just like, well, good, at least he shut his website down, is it's likely to get replaced if it's something of value, and it'll likely be by a company who doesn't really have that passion for writers and authors, and they just have a passion for your money. Unfortunately, it can suck when people get caught in the crossfire if that's what took place here. And while a lot of these comments are people that are basically demanding that he still delete the data, I did see quite a few comments of people that were basically asking if he could just give it to them so they can create a company. And unfortunately, that's where I feel like a lot of this is going, is someone will take that flack without a problem. And so again, yeah, big supporter of writers, big supporter of collective action, but just like with AI art, it's going to be the big companies that are really the bad guys in a lot of cases. And just like I warned in the case of the AI art world with Adobe before Firefly even became a thing, it's going to be big corporations that find their way past these copyright laws so they can actually make use of your data without you really being able to do much about it. And also, in the meantime, it's not really much of a win to take down a useful website that, from what I understand, didn't really cost anything. Lastly, I'll say that Benji ended on a great note here by basically saying he wants to rebuild this thing eventually. It's not the time right now, and he wants the consent of authors along the way. So maybe this isn't the end. And yeah, if I see anything cool come out from Benji or Prosecraft, I'll let you guys know. In the meantime, thanks for watching.